Hey, Dirt Farmer Jay here from DirtFarmerJay.com. You know, some of you have written in and given us a call, saying we love the fact that you are all about self-reliance, growing your own food, doing gardening. The problem is we don't have 2 acres, 3 acres, 5 acres, which you guys have. We don't even have a little bitty plot. I live in a condo or downtown, only have a balcony, or live in a place where there is no open ground whatsoever, or have very limited open ground. So how do I get into the enjoyment and the healthiness and the self-reliance of raising some of my own food? To you, my friends, this is one of a series of 6 to 10 different methodologies you can use to become self-reliant for your food source, or at least greatly diminish your dependence on having to go to the store to pick up some of these things. And besides, it's just a great amount of fun. And if you got little ones in your life, if you're a grandparent or you're raising little ones at home, a tomato that a little kid raised or picked themselves always tastes better, okay? So let's get started. The first in our series is a self-watering container. This is known by its acronym, SWC. As you can see, it uses commonly available items. This happens to be a couple Homer buckets from the Home Depot. There's a little bit of 3/4 inch PVC pipe. There's some soil mix and so forth. The really cool thing about an SWC is that you get to water it perhaps once a week. That's all you need to do. Number 2, it's a closed system, so it takes fertilizer only in the top ring up on the top. Number 3, it creates a very robust root system in here that I'll show you in just a second as well. So this really works out well. And here is a great thing for those of you that are in the desert Southwest, for instance, Las Vegas, Tucson, Phoenix, where you get some really hot, droughty areas, a lot of wind moving on. This really helps conserve moisture, allows the plant to thrive even in those kind of situations because there's plenty of moisture as the plant needs it. There's the soil, potting soil, and you would add fertilizer just by putting a ring around here, putting fertilizer. This has been fertilized once about 4 or 5 weeks ago, but you can see that there's plenty of moisture in this. It's not really wet, it's wicking it from the bottom, and I have a surprise for you in a moment here. Now, I'm going to put this back on. I'm not going to snap it on, but here is, we're going to pull this out, and when I do so, you can see the chamber that's on the bottom. And that chamber, and this is quite heavy, so I'm going to set it right there. That chamber at the bottom that you just saw is what transfers moisture across to the bottom of this here. It wicks in from the bottom reservoir into this and feeds the bottom of this here. And as you can see, this tomato plant is doing quite well. Look at all the roots here. We have a root structure that's filling this whole bucket. Now, let's go and look at the supplies that you need to build this very container. First of all, I want to give credit where credit is due. This is actually a plan out of the Urban Homestead, and this is in about page 20. There's a great diagram, so this is a great start. Get the book, The Urban Homestead. Secondly, other tools you'll need a hacksaw, you'll need a PVC pipe cutter, you'll need a Sharpie pen, a paddle bit that's about a 1 1/8, some kind of cutout saw, stab saw, a tape measure, a drill motor that allows you to put in a couple different bits, a large bag of potting soil, and for the wicking chamber, you're going to need a yogurt cup, something like this, okay? All right, that's our basics. Let's get going. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the fill tube. You need to cut a tube about 24 inches. And I'm going to cut it at an angle. The reason for that is that if you put it flat and the fill tube just lands flat on the bottom of the bucket, the water's going to have a difficult time coming out. If you cut it on a slant, when you fill in the water from the top, it'll come down, splash out the sideways just fine without backfilling the tube. And the drill hole in the side of the bucket stops it from overfilling. So here we go. We're just going to cut an angle on this. Okay, so then that's going to be your fill tube. the second thing you need to do, go ahead and mark where the fill hole goes or the overflow hole goes in the second one. And here's how you do that. You put one bucket inside the other and you hold it up to the light. And you can see the line right there and say, okay, that's where it is. Now that we know where our mark is, you can actually see the mark through here. We're just going to drill a hole to the side. There we go. I use about 1/4 to 5/16 brad point bit. The first bucket's completely done. There you go. As you can see from the inside, no matter how much water you put in, it's always going to leak down to that level and then level out and therefore create that air gap between the top and bottom bucket. All right, now, here's the more extensive work that needs to be done. I pre-marked this just a little bit, and I know that I want this cup not to come all the way through, so I just drew the outside diameter of the cup, and I'm actually going to use it as a guideline to estimate where I'm going to cut that. You don't have to be super accurate all this. That's part of the fun on this, is that you can just kind of go at it. And what I do is I take the drill right here and get a couple starter holes. Okay, I learned real quick as I was cutting with this saw only works moderately well. It'll cut the plastic okay, but here's part of the problem. It's so wide that it can't turn. So I've switched, and now I'm going to go ahead and use this. And you probably have one of these here, and you can see, you can plunge this cut in. Just be careful where the knife blade goes, and there you go. See how it's plunging in? Okay. So now I've got the hole cut out, and the first attempt I cut, it was too small. So what I had to do is just trim it out until it fit the cup correctly. And so here we go. Here's the cup, and we're just going to let it hang on the lip of the bucket into the second bucket. This can't protrude beyond 3 inches below. So we're going to just push that through, and as you can see, that's just about right. And meanwhile, what we need to do is put a row of holes all the way around this. It allows the moisture that gets pulled up and then excess to drip back into the container down below. So here we go. Now, you notice right here that I did not put one of the holes here. The reason for that is that we need to put the fill tube down to the bottom. So we're going to use a 1 1/8 inch paddle bit. Just going to put it in this open area here where there's nothing close to it. Take that through and just let it go. There we go. Now, if we put, just to test it, we put that bucket inside there. You can see that tube is going to go right in the bottom. I'm going to tilt it right that way. That's how that tube's going to go. There's a couple more things you need to do. Number one, we need to put a matching hole for the fill tube to be held in place. And how you do that is simply using the same 1 1/8 inch paddle bit. You're going to put it right out near the edge over here. So you don't have to be perfect again. You just simply there you go. What it does is just like that. You're going to rotate that around, and you can see that that would put a fill. You can cut it a little closer if you want. Now, what about where the plant goes? Well, that's our next step. And what I do is I use the yogurt cup itself as the marker. Now, depending on what you're going to plant in it, I would say keep a smaller hole simply because one of the main purposes of the lid is to reduce evaporation and retain moisture. So the bigger the opening you put across the top, the more loss of moisture you're going to have at the top. You're trying to create somewhat of a closed system here. So you can again eyeball this. I just simply use the bottom part of it, mark around. Then what we're going to do here is just okay, we essentially have the top of our bucket except for the wicking chamber done. So right now, that's where the plant's going to be. Now, one other option that you might be interested in here may help you a bit, and that is to split the lid. If you like, and if you have some way to cleanly cut this, you can cut sideways right across the top. Cut that in half, and that allows you to snap it on after you put a plant. We turn our attention to the wicking chamber. Remember, it's called a wicking chamber because it's suspended into the water solution below. It pulls in water and irrigate by diffusion. It'll pull it up into everything here. So here we go. The only thing we're going to do here is drill a series of holes around the side, not on the bottom. The reason you don't want to do in the bottom is that would have the soil have a tendency to drop out of it. So simply all you're going to do is use this and just so now we have the makings of our wicking chamber. Real simple. Okay? Top bucket. Put this through. Wedge it in. What you're going to do is put this into there. Second thing you're going to do is put your fill tube. Remember to put the angled end to the bottom. So you're going to line that up in the hole in the bottom. It's now standing and hitting the bottom bucket. You're going to go ahead and fill this with potting soil to the same height that you saw over here on this dude right here, okay? You're going to build it right up to here. Move this to where now it is held in. Go ahead and plant your plant, put this over, or split the lid and snap it on both sides. You can put a little ring of fertilizer around the side. Do not fertilize the plant directly. Just put it around here because the moisture will move the fertilizer as it's needed. So what we're going to do here is put this on, get your plant in there, put your support sticks out the top right there, and then what you're going to do is go ahead and fill up the bottom with water. Saturate this a little bit as you do it, get it moist so you're not putting a moist plant ball into a dry soil mix, okay? And at this point, you now have a self-watering container. Put it on a somewhat level area where it's well supported. Another great thing about these is you can move them around. If you've got an area that gets some mild sun or moderate sun in the morning, and the plant's okay out there, but later on it's a real roaster, you can move the plant in under shade, give it the best of both worlds, some bright shade, reflected light off or something else. Well, as I said, this is the first in many series on techniques that we're going to show you, the urban gardener, how to make the most of your yard so that you can grow more of your own produce, the things you enjoy in life. Until the next time, I'm Dirt Farmer Jay, DirtFarmerJay.com. The only place you want the water to transfer is the little basket that's hanging down that will perforate that is full of soil. So that's the purpose of this. So the overflow always creates an air gap no matter how full you fill the fill tube. So what we're going to do is go ahead,